There is a stack of books somewhere in your home. Maybe it is sitting on your nightstand, looming over you while you try to sleep. Maybe it is a digital list buried deep in a device, haunting you with red notification bubbles. You bought them with the best of intentions. You saw the cover or read a review, and for a split second, you imagined a future version of yourself. A version that was smarter. A version that understood history or stoicism or the mechanics of the universe. So you bought the book, you brought it home, you placed it on the pile, and there it has sat for weeks, for months, perhaps for years. Now, whenever you walk past that stack, you do not feel smarter. You do not feel inspired. You feel a quiet, gnawing sense of guilt. You look at those spines and you see a to-do list that never gets shorter. You see wasted money. You see a testament to your own procrastination. You tell yourself that you need to stop buying books until you finish the ones you have. You treat your library like a debt that must be paid off. But I want you to pause. What if that feeling of guilt is a lie? What if that stack of unread books is not a sign of failure, but the most important tool you own? What if the books you haven't read are actually far more valuable to your mind than the ones you have? Let's look at the diagnosis of this feeling. Why does an unread book make us feel so heavy? We live in a culture that is obsessed with completion. We are taught from a very young age that the purpose of a task is to finish it. We treat knowledge like a grocery list. We want to get in, get the information, check the box, and get out. This manifests in our lives in three very specific, very exhausting ways. First, look at how we handle our careers. We view skills as static objects to be collected. We scramble to read the latest business book or learn the newest software, not because we are curious, but because we are terrified of falling behind. We want to consume the knowledge so we can say, I know that. We want to close the book so we can close the gap. Second, we see this in our social interactions. Have you ever been at a dinner party or in a meeting where someone mentions a classic novel or a new theory, and you nod your head? You smile, you pretend to recognize the name. Why do we do that? Because we have tied our self-worth to our database of facts. We feel that admitting ignorance is a sign of weakness. We feel that an unread book represents a hole in our armor where someone could hurt us. And third, and perhaps most painfully, we see this in the quiet moments before sleep. You look at the book on the bedside table. You read 2 pages, your eyes get heavy, you put it down. And as you drift off, a small voice whispers that you are lazy, that you lack discipline, that if you were a better person, you would be devouring a chapter a night. You turn a source of wisdom into a source of anxiety. Why does the human brain do this? Why do we fear the unread? Biologically, your brain is designed to hate the unknown. To your ancestors, the unknown was not an intellectual concept. It was a physical threat. If you didn't know what was in the dark cave, you didn't go in because it might eat you. If you didn't know which berry was poisonous, you didn't eat it because you might die. Certainty equaled safety. Ambiguity equaled danger. So, we evolved to close loops. We evolved to seek answers. When we see a book we haven't read, our primitive brain registers it as a gap, a blind spot, a piece of the map that is still dark. And that darkness feels dangerous. It triggers a subtle fight or flight response that we interpret as stress or guilt. We try to pave over the wild forest of our ignorance with the concrete of certainty. But the unrushed mind sees this differently. We must shift our perspective from the library as a trophy case to the library as a reminder. There is a Japanese word for this specific habit, Tsundoku. It describes the act of acquiring reading materials and letting them pile up without reading them. In the West, we call this hoarding. In the East, there is a recognition that the pile itself has a presence, it has a spirit. To understand why this is good, we have to look at the concept of the anti-library. The writer Nassim Taleb talks about the legendary writer Umberto Eco. Eco belonged to a very small class of scholars. He owned a massive personal library containing 30,000 books. Imagine walking into that room. Picture the high ceilings, the smell of dust and aging paper, the walls lined from floor to ceiling with colorful spines. It is a fortress of paper. When visitors would come to Eco's house, they would look at this massive collection and ask the same shallow question. Wow, have you read all of these? They were missing the point. Taleb argues that a private library is not an ego-boosting appendage. It is a research tool. Read books are far less valuable than unread ones. A read book is something you have conquered. It is a story you know. It is a fact you have categorized. It is in the past. But the unread books are the future. The collection of unread books is what Taleb calls the anti-library. Think of your knowledge as a circle of light in a vast, dark field. As you learn more, the circle of light grows bigger, but as the circle grows, so does the circumference of the darkness bordering it. The more you know, the more you realize how much you do not know. This is the antidote to the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias where people with low ability at a task overestimate their ability. It is the arrogance of the amateur. It is the person who reads one article and thinks they are a doctor. It is the person who watches one video and thinks they can build a house. They are confident because their library is small. They have read everything in it, so they think they have read everything in the world. The anti-library destroys this arrogance. When you sit at your desk and you are surrounded by stacks of books you have never opened, books on astrophysics, on medieval architecture, on the migration patterns of birds, on languages you do not speak, you are forced to be humble. The stack serves as a silent sentinel. It whispers to you, you are small, the world is big, there is still so much to discover. This does not depress the unrushed mind, it liberates it. If you think you know everything, you stop looking, you stop listening, you become rigid, brittle, and old regardless of your age. But if you embrace the unread pile, you remain curious, you remain fluid, you admit that you are a student, and you will always be a student. The hustle culture tells you to speed read. It tells you to listen to audiobooks at 2 times speed so you can consume content. It wants you to strip mine wisdom for productivity hacks. The unrushed way is to let the books pile up like snow, to let them sit there, insulating you from your own ego. So, how do we turn this philosophy into action? How do we lay the one brick today? I want you to do something that will feel like a waste of money to your logical brain. I want you to buy a book that you know absolutely nothing about. Do not buy a book related to your job. Do not buy a self-help book that promises to fix you. Do not buy the bestseller everyone is talking about. Go to a bookstore, walk to a section you never visit. Maybe it is botany, maybe it is philosophy, maybe it is the history of salt. Find a book that looks interesting, complex, and intimidating. Buy it. Here's the instruction. Do not read it, not yet. Take it home and place it prominently on your desk or your coffee table. Let it take up space. Your brain, that efficiency-obsessed machine, will start to complain. It will say, why did we spend $20 on this? We don't have time for this. This is clutter. Acknowledge that voice and then ignore it. Look at the book. Read the title. Realize that an entire expert's life work is inside those pages and you know none of it. Let that book be a monument to your ignorance. Whenever you feel yourself getting arrogant, whenever you feel like you have life figured out, glance at the book. Let it ground you. Let it remind you that you are still a beginner. Eventually you might read it, or maybe you won't. Maybe you will open it in 5 years. Maybe you will never open it. That is okay. Its value is not just in the reading. Its value is in the presence. It is holding space for the things you have yet to become. We spend so much of our lives trying to clear the decks. We try to empty the inbox, finish the list, clean the room. We want the smooth surface of completion. But life is not smooth. It is textured. It is deep. Do not be afraid of the unread pile. Do not apologize for the books you haven't touched. Build your anti-library. Surround yourself with what you do not know. Let your curiosity be greater than your ego. Stay unrushed.